Hey everybody, my name is Adam McLean, and I'm the show's host here on the podcast. This week we're going to talk about the key ingredient that helps every youth ministry succeed: volunteers. And we're going to start off today with Mark Matlock, and he's going to share some tips on helping volunteers succeed and thrive in the ministry.
Well, I've been involved in youth ministry, working with the parachurch, supporting local church ministry in that way for more than 18 years. I've also been involved in the local church as a volunteer, serving under various youth pastors in my own church. And there's some things that I've learned about what makes me feel engaged and involved as a volunteer that I thought I might pass along with some tips for you. The first thing is help volunteers be successful. There's nothing worse, even for someone who's involved in youth ministry as much as I am, walking into a youth room and not really knowing what my role or my place is, and not being prepared to be successful and to do a good job in front of students. Working with teenagers is a very intimidating thing for people who don't do it on a regular basis. And having a sense of knowing what's going on and what their expectations are, and giving them materials in advance that help them to be prepared and ready to go will help them stay in the youth ministry longer because they're feeling successful and connected to what's going on. The second thing to helping volunteers be successful is communication. And I'm not just talking about what time to show up or what events are coming up on the calendar, but really sharing the stories of what you're experiencing as a youth pastor. A lot of times volunteers don't always get to see some of the students that are coming to know the Lord or breakthroughs that are going on in the lives of homes and parents. So sharing those stories on a weekly basis is real important. What I love about my youth pastor Charlie's communication to us is he doesn't just tell us what's coming up, but he also tells us exciting things that are happening in terms of the vision of the youth ministry. He shares prayer requests with us of students that are in need or issues that he's dealing with, and he keeps us really connected with the heart of what God is doing in our youth ministry, things that sometimes as volunteers we don't see on a regular basis. The third area that you can really do to help connect volunteers to what's going on is realizing that volunteers really are committed to the ministry, and that when you make changes or move things around, they feel real loss. Even when the changes and the new directions that you're making are needed and important, we can still feel kind of empty. For instance, in our youth ministry, we just changed the nature of our small group program. We moved them out of homes and back to the church. And in so doing, basically made it impossible for me to continue in my role as a volunteer in that particular area. And this change, while I totally supported it and thought it was the right thing to do for where our youth ministry is at right now, I felt great loss and just felt like, wow, this thing that I've been so connected with over the years is missing in my life. And what I really appreciated about the youth pastor that I serve under is that he took the time to listen to me and hear the feelings that I was going through, and share in the loss of ministry and service that I was experiencing in my life. So remember that when you make those changes, sometimes you make them quickly, but there are people that really are emotionally connected to the things that are going on, and be sensitive to that, and you'll find that the volunteers support you so much more. Volunteers are so critical to increasing the relational surface area of our ministries. Make sure you take care of them by helping them be prepared and successful in the tasks that you give them, communicating with them about the big vision, the prayer, and the breakthroughs that you're seeing in your youth ministry. And then also by recognizing that when you make change, you're changing something that's very meaningful and important to them. Thanks.
Recently I had a chance to sit down with Jim Hancock. He's one of our authors and speakers, an all-around good guy. We went out to his favorite breakfast place, the Potato Shack, and he had this stuff to share with you guys about being a volunteer.
I know a lot of people who are trying to get out of being volunteers so they can be professionals in youth ministry. I went in the other direction. After almost 20 years as a card-carrying professional youth worker, I became a volunteer, and it was 5 of the best years of my youth ministry. I think the thing I loved best about being a volunteer youth worker is that I could just pay attention to kids. I could just be engaged with conversation, with creating learning environments, with engaging people in doing life together. One of the first things I had to do as a returning volunteer was figure out how to walk into a room without a business card, without a title, without any obvious reason to be there, and engage in building relationships from scratch. That meant learning in a fresh way, or perhaps learning all over again, how to listen really carefully, how to pay attention to nonverbal cues, how to no longer assume that kids expected me to say something meaningful, and so to listen my way into the process of communication in two directions. I don't think I learned until I was a volunteer again the principle that kids listen to people who listen. And I had always taken it for granted, or been able to take it for granted as a professional, that kids listen to people who talk. That reversal of the flow made, in my estimation, the gospel a much better story, much more live. And in fact, I realized that I had, in one sense, lost 20 years to speaking as an authority rather than speaking as somebody who was horizontally in relationship and engaging in just honest friendship. What that means to me is not that there's anything wrong with being a professional, but that volunteers get a chance to do some things that professionals can't. I think that's extraordinary. For years and years I believed, and I'm afraid contributed to the notion that real youth ministry is done by real professionals. That's never been the case. There are 160,000 Protestant churches on the rolls in North America, and there aren't nearly 160,000 professional youth workers to go around. Most of those churches have about 100 adults showing up every Sunday. 100 adults can't support a professional youth worker. But that doesn't mean youth ministry isn't going on, and it doesn't mean that youth ministry can't go on going forward. By now there's a pretty good chance you've noticed that pastors come and pastors go, that youth workers come and youth workers go, but that the church keeps going on and on and on and on, and that as a volunteer there's a pretty fair chance that you'll outlast, don't tell them I said this, that you'll outlast the person who's getting paid to do youth work in your congregation, if there is such a person. That means that your capacity to influence the lives of generation after generation after generation of kids exceeds the capacity of anybody who has an official title. Your ability to be an influencer of kids and their parents and their grandparents exists in a unique way because the church has never been about being a 501c3 non-profit organization. It's always been about being the body of Christ. It's always been about being an organism, and as a part of that you carry something of the DNA of heaven right into the presence of the kids you work with. I think that's pretty amazing.
Thanks for watching our podcast this week. As always, I want to invite you to connect with me. You can send me an email at adam@youthspecialties.com, or also you can look me up on Facebook or MySpace or Twitter or any other social network out there that you like to use. We want to remind you, and we want to say it every time we get the opportunity, that what you do in your ministry matters. It matters to the church, it matters to the parents, but most importantly, it matters to God. We'll see you next week.